Dawgs, another episode of Mississippi State Sports Talk here. Robbie Falk here. This is my mustache. This is my fluffy chair behind me. And we're excited for another night of Talking Dogs here. A lot to talk about on this week's show. Mississippi State 2-0 now on the season, coming off a 31-24 narrow win over Arizona, and that was a game that's brought quite the mixed messages out from fans. And I don't even know if it's so much mixed. There's a lot of people that are not very thrilled with how that game played out for Mississippi State against Arizona. And we'll kind of break that game down and talk about what went right, what went wrong for the Bulldogs. At the end of the day, it was a win for Mississippi State. They had to come in and win that ball game, get the 2-0, and move on to LSU. But there were some concerning things that happened in that game that we'll talk about and see if Mississippi State can fix them this week. I want to remind you guys once again, this is a live YouTube. This is very loose. This is very free. You guys feel free to put in your comments, your questions, anything in that chat box over there, and we'll discuss what we can tonight on the show. We don't even have to talk about Mississippi State sports. This is a tell all. This is anything goes type of conversation that we have here on the show, and I appreciate whatever you guys got to say. We'll talk about just about whatever, but mostly we're going to talk about Mississippi State football tonight and what's on the way with LSU this week. Mississippi State's 2-0. LSU comes in 1-1. It's played out just like it did last year. Florida State beat LSU in the first game of the season. Then LSU played a SWAC team and rolled through that ball game, while Mississippi State went 2-0 in their games. So it played out the exact same way that it did last year. Mississippi State came into that LSU game last year. There were a few concerns, but they went on the road and they handled Arizona. They had beaten Memphis fairly well. I know a lot of people were upset about what happened on Saturday against Arizona, but some of the same things that happened against Arizona last year, Bulldogs just handled that game a little bit better. But there were some concerns in that game last year after leaving that game as well. They didn't play particularly well on the offensive side of the ball, at least not consistently. A lot of mistakes. We saw some turnovers in that game. We saw the defense give up some big plays in that game, although I thought they played really well after the first possession against Arizona. In this game, it was kind of the opposite. State got off to a very hot start in this game compared to what they did last year. 4 turnovers in the first 4 possessions. Jaden DeLaura threw 3 straight interceptions. He threw an interception to Nate Watson, Jet Johnson, and then a deep ball interception from Sean Preston, which was just really a great play from Sean Preston on that one. But State got off to a 14-0 start, and I thought they left at least 3 points off the board, but probably more. They should have scored at least a touchdown on one of the 2 drives they didn't score on. And then, had an opportunity to kick a field goal down there inside the 10-yard line, I think, and didn't take the points. And you let Arizona stay around in that game. And that's the dangers. That's what you face when you're playing another Power 5 team or somebody else in the SEC or whatever, that you're, the talent gap isn't that huge. When you're still supposed to win that game, if you let a team hang around and give them hope in a home game like that, that's when upsets happen. And that's what we talked about coming in this game. They needed to come out early in the game and choke out Arizona and make sure that the game was over by halftime. They didn't do that. It was 14-7 at the half, and Arizona felt like going to the locker room. They had a chance to win that game, and they did have a chance to win it. State just never controlled it. They got up again 21-7 in the second half, but again couldn't put Arizona away. Gave up big plays in the passing game. The offense was really stagnant from I guess what I saw from the offense was not that they couldn't run the football, because they had success running the football. They relied too heavily on running the football, and their possessions were getting to the point where they were stalling out because of it. They were still having success on some of these possessions running it. It's not like they were going 3 and out every time. It's just that they would have these drives where they get momentum and then have a big play and then come back with 3 straight runs. And, Arizona was able to stop that by loading up the box. So the offense became really one-dimensional as the game went on, and they lost a lot of that momentum. And that's a little different than what we saw in the first game of the season against Southeastern Louisiana. I thought in that ball game, the play calling was pretty diverse. I thought it was relatively balanced. They did run the football a little more than they did pass it in that game, but I thought they were more balanced. I thought the play calling was something that couldn't be really keyed on by the Southeastern Louisiana defense. A lot of misdirection, a lot of pre-snap movements from the offense, some different formations. It really made it difficult for the Lions to figure that out, but I didn't see as much of that in this game. And, Will Rogers said that there were some plays to be made down the field, and they didn't necessarily take those opportunities. To me, after watching the game, seeing how it flowed, seeing some frustrations from the offensive players of, maybe play calling, I thought that it kind of fell on that and the game plan and all that stuff. So let's see if they can figure it out this week. I'm not going to make any kind of declarations on what this offense is just yet. I want to see some more from the offense this week and see what they look like there before we start making any kind of declarations that this team is one certain thing. I think they're going to run the football more than they do pass it. I just have a very hard time believing it's going to be 39-17 rush to pass like we saw this past week. I think that's something that's kind of an anomaly, I guess. But we'll obviously monitor it. If it happens again this week, the state's in trouble against LSU. So plenty to talk about. If you guys got some questions, throw them in there. We got a lot of them coming in right now. I'm going to go ahead and start diving into those before it gets a little overbearing. Andy Sparks, have you watched any of the Grambling LSU game? I watched a couple of snaps of it, just like glancing by, but not really. I mean, I don't know what we could really learn from that game. LSU's so overmatching Grambling in that game that I just don't know if we really learn anything. I think the Florida State game tells us a little bit more, and LSU did not look great in that game. Defensively, LSU's got some issues, which I'm wondering how much of that is no Mason Smith. When you don't have Mason Smith, a guy like that on the front that's that talented, up there disrupting plays, I think that hurts tremendously for them. And you got, a great player in Harold Perkins, but there's so many guys up front that, help guys like Harold Perkins and guys in the defensive backfield really kind of explode defensively. So the defensive line is really where it all begins, and LSU needs that help up front from a guy like Mason Smith. The defensive backfield has kind of, I think, struggled a little bit. So I think it's a defense that, State can move the ball on and score on, but I don't think they can do it by being one-dimensional. They're going to have to give some different looks this week to LSU. And it would be shocking if they come out in that same offense this week. If it is, then you have some major issues on this offensive staff, because I don't know if you can put that out there against SEC defenses year week in and week out and feel like you're going to have success. I just don't think that's going to happen. And LSU's a defense; they're talented enough that they could load the box up against that and stop that. And Mississippi State's not going to have any success. So you got to change that up. But no, I didn't get to see that. But first glance at LSU, they have some issues. Just like State does. I mean, I don't see perfection out of LSU. I thought this was going to be a much better team than they are. I don't see it, especially from my undefeated prediction that I made, which was apparently very stupid. But I've never been called smart. I mean, nobody's ever told me I'm a smart person. So don't hold that against me. But I think that this is I don't know if there's a ton of teams in the SEC that are just great. Georgia's going to be great this year. Alabama doesn't look great. LSU doesn't look great. But with that said, this is still a very good team. It's a very talented team with one of the best coaches in the country. And last year, they didn't look great at the beginning of the season. By the end of the year, they were the SEC West champions. So this is a team that can obviously get better. Right now, it's just it's just good. And it's going to be a tough opponent for Mississippi State still. I mean, we're not talking about a great Mississippi State team. So there's still work to do for Mississippi State. But playing at home, playing a team that's shown some vulnerability, Mississippi State if they play their A game, has a shot. Jason East, I've seen some discussion from other fans thinking we haven't showed the entire offense. Do you feel like we're holding back? If they are holding back, I think that is not a concern, but I don't think that's wise. You could have done that against Southeastern Louisiana. I don't think you could do that against Arizona. I don't think that was a wise decision if that was what they did. I don't think they're necessarily holding back. I think what happened was they saw that they could run the football with a lot of success early on in the game. The offensive line was really moving people around. They were averaging 8 yards a rush in the first few possessions, and I think Kevin Barbay said, let's keep doing this. And Zach Arnett even admitted today, after that long drive that Arizona had and the turnover that was forced by Sean Preston, that he told Kevin Barbay, let's slow it down a little bit. My defense is really tired right now. Let's slow things down and kind of give them a breather. And he said that was a mistake. They should have stepped on the gas right there, because if you score a touchdown on that drive, it's 21-0 right there. And Arizona's tapping out at that point. 4 straight turnovers, are down by 3 touchdowns. I don't think Arizona, after that, is coming out really thrilled. But instead, they get Mississippi State, I think, to miss a field goal right there, I think is what happened. I can't remember exactly, but I think that's what happened there. It was either a field goal or a punt. I think it was a field goal missed. And then you start to get a little life. And I think they drove down the field, scored a touchdown. And it's a totally new game. You flip the script there. And so what happened there was they were a hindrance to themselves by slowing things down. So hopefully the game plan shifts a little bit for Mississippi State this week, and we see a little more aggression out of them, because you can afford to be aggressive with this offense. There are guys on this offense that can make plays down the field. I think Will Rogers can make plays down the field. There's a lot of people that blame Will Rogers on Saturday. He's shown the ability to throw the football 20, 25 yards. That's not something that is completely foreign to him. This isn't a guy that can only throw 10 to 15 yards. I mean, he threw 15, 20-yard touchdown to Tulu Griffin that he just kind of lobbed up there. You can't tell me that he couldn't chunk that one down the field 30 yards. He's capable of doing it. And he was frustrated, quite frankly, with the play calling. You could tell during the game. So there's more you could do with Will Rogers. He's not holding this offense back like that. There's more that they can do there, and I hope that they do that this week. We'll see. Dirty 808 game will come down to our O-line and Will's passing. I agree. I think you're going to have to throw the football in this game. And it doesn't have to be 50 times. Just come out and throw the football 20 to 25 times in this game, just showing that you're doing something else, and that'll open up the run game, and vice versa. Run game can open up the pass. They've got to do a little bit more throwing the football, whether it be, slants or, corner passes. It doesn't have to be, post patterns and vertical routes the whole game, but get it 15 yards down the field, get it 10 yards down the field, throw some curl routes, do something other than, dump off passes and screens. There's got to be something else you can do there offensively to kind of create some separation and keep LSU on their heels. They've got to be able to mix it up a little bit, because LSU's good enough on defense that if you get one-dimensional, it's going to be tough. Coach Matt Caldwell, nice purple rain shirt. Appreciate you, sir. Big Prince fan. I'm like some of these people that are going to wear the Prince shirt, and you ask them to name a couple of Prince songs, and they have no idea. I know a little bit about Prince. I love Prince. Deshaun M., talk about anything other than our Steelers. I had to take a break from NFL for mental health. Yeah, it was tough yesterday. I was outside working on my porch ceiling on my porch outside, because I was dumb and didn't put a clear coat on the tongue and groove before I hung it up, and I had that on in the background, and it was rough. I had to switch to the Titans and Saints, which was not much better from a game standpoint, but I didn't have a really a dog in the fight, so I had no emotional attachment to it. Andy, Grambling averaged almost 6 yards a carry against LSU. I feel better about our chances. Yeah, I mean, it's not the LSU defense of old. I mean, this is a defense that you can move the ball on. Florida State obviously did it. Well, Florida State scored 45 points. And just looking at that, let's look at the box score of that game in Florida State. I mean, that game was rough. Florida State had 494 yards. They averaged 8 yards a play, 359 through the air, 135 on the ground. They were averaging 4 yards a rush on the ground, so it wasn't just killing it. But, it really moved the football well. Like I said, 359 through the air, 35-minute time of possession, 9 of 14 on third downs, scored every time in the red zone. So, there just wasn't a whole lot from LSU in that game to be blown away. And then you're playing a significantly worse team in Grambling and gave up 10 points, which, 320 yards for Grambling. That's a lot of yards for a SWAC team against an SEC school. 163 on the ground. They averaged 5.5 a carry. This is the first time I'm looking at their stats. They had 188 on the ground. So the others were sacks. So they almost had 200 yards rushing. That's kind of concerning if you're LSU. But then the flip side, LSU had 600 yards of offense. And, this is what they did last year. I think they played Southern maybe last year before State. But at the same time, it was 14-10 ball game in the first quarter. They kind of turned it on after there, though. You can't. 72 points is 72 points and 600 yards. So, State's got to be good on defense. They got to be better. And they got to do a lot better against Jaden Daniels than they did against Jaden DeLauro. I didn't think they did very well against him, especially after those interceptions. Didn't get a ton of pressure on him. And when they did flush him out of the pocket, they lost contain a little bit a couple of times. When he got out of the pocket, extended plays, he made big plays. State's got to be careful with that. Jaden Daniels is going to be a little more active running. For whatever reason, Jaden DeLauro does not take off and run very often. I think he had maybe over 50 yards rushing, but he's not a guy that's going to tuck it up and run a whole lot. Jaden Daniels will do that. State's got to have a little more contain on him this year. A spy, somebody that can stop that, because second half last year, after they had contained him in the pocket, because in the pocket he is not nearly as good as he is outside of it. When they had contained him in the pocket, he started getting out of the pocket, scrambling, running, picking up big chunks of yardage. That was where State started to lose the ball game against LSU last year. They got to be able to contain him this year, keep him in the pocket. And that's one thing Zach Arnett said is, you gotta keep him in the pocket, but you don't want to give him too much time back there. But then if you flush him out of the pocket, he's going to make plays. So it's kind of, he called it just a nightmare to game plan for, not very fun at all. And, that's a challenge for a defensive coordinator when you have a dual threat guy like that can move around, move the pocket, keep plays alive, use his feet, and if he doesn't see anything, tuck it up and run. That's just a very difficult kind of player to game plan for. So this is going to be a challenge for Mississippi State 2 weeks in a row facing a dual threat guy like this. JMT, really proud of our O-line for making the switch from primarily pass blocking and getting penetration on run blocks. Yeah, they're getting there. I think that there's, obviously it's not set. I think they still have some guys that might need to be moved around. I don't know if this is the best 5 that you can get at their particular position. They're not playing, up to their potential just yet. There's still room to grow, but you're talking about a group that's had to transition from the air raid to a different style of offense. And even though I feel like this fits their skill set a lot better, it is a different offense, and they're having to adjust to it. So that's something that is going to come in time. I think by the end of the year, offensive line could be a strength for this team, though. But they just got to figure out who fits where, and these guys have just got to get comfortable back in a scheme like this. Nick Finney, our D-line, needs to step it up. Pickering, Crumedy, and those guys need to bring it. Yeah, and they've been solid. I think Nathan Pickering especially has been really good so far. JMT, what's your prediction on Jet and Buki in the NFL draft, given how well MSU's done? That's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, Buki's not going to test well, test as well as some of the other linebackers, and neither is Jet, really. The speed is going to be a concern, and, for Buki, like maybe the size and the speed together. I mean, I don't know where they fit as far as the NFL draft's concerned, but I could see those guys getting a shot. Jet especially is not going to be a sexy pick for GMs, but man, the dude just makes plays all over the field. And if he was just a tick faster, I think he would be a bona fide NFL guy and a guy that would be in the NFL for a long time. It's just the instincts, the tackling ability, doesn't miss very many tackles, shoots the gaps. He always seems to find his way into wherever the ball is. He's actually been really solid in coverage over the years. Just needs to be a tick faster, I think, for that level. But, I could see those guys making a roster somewhere. They've certainly been great college football players. What needs to be done to keep Daniels in the pocket and swallow him up? Yeah, that would be ideal, but that's still going to be a challenge. Richard Neal, when are we going to see some offensive output from the tight end room? I just don't think that's going to happen much this year. That they just don't have the dudes. Jaquarius Spivey was a huge hit in that regard, and we're just not seeing much from Rylan Goody. And the other guys in there right now are, converted linemen. It's just there's not a whole lot of guys in there that you can count on to run a route and win those one-on-one battles. Rylan Goody, I don't think he's caught a pass in his college career, so it's obviously it's hindering them a little bit offensively. But that's one of those deals where you've got to work around that. Like if you don't have the tight ends, you don't have to force feed those guys or force the tight ends onto the field. Run four wide, put four wide receivers out there a little more. You got to adjust to that a little bit. That's what Kevin Barbay. That's a challenge for him now. You don't have a Jaquarius Spivey or a guy that you really count on at tight end at this point. So, bring in the tight ends for situations like we're seeing, short yardage situations, an extra blocker, things like that. I think that's a really good thing. But, there's situations where you can get another wide receiver on the field and allow yourself to have more playmakers out there to expand this offense a little bit. And I'm wondering if we see that a little more. I think we did see some four wide on Saturday, but there might need to be more of it if you're going to throw the ball around a little bit. Now, last Saturday, they went 39 runs in the game, so that's what they needed was the two tight ends more often than not. But I just I don't think that's sustainable all year long. I think you can do that against teams that you're just way more talented than. But in the SEC, I just don't think you're going to be able to go out there and run the football 40 times against most defenses. MSU Dog went back and looked at Kevin's offense. I wouldn't be surprised if we throw 25 passes Saturday. It might be boring, but if it works, he commits to it. Run or pass. Yeah, I mean, if you look at what he did at Appalachian State, I'm going to pull that up real quick because I was looking at this before the season when I was kind of delving into Kevin Barbay's offense a little bit. There isn't a whole lot of, knowns. It's not necessarily nailed down he's going to do this. He's going to run the football more often than not. That's pretty much a given. At the end of the day, he's going to be anywhere from 52% to 55% run. That's just what his offense is going to do. But if you look at the game by game situations that they've had, and what he did at Appalachian State, the game kind of dictates where he leans. And there's been games where he's thrown the football a lot more than he's run it. Sorry about that. Let's look at this. So they took North Carolina, to the limit last year. And he threw the ball 25 times for 361 yards. And they rushed the ball 43 times for 288. Against A&M, we saw a game plan very similar to what we saw against Arizona. And that was kind of keeping the ball away from A&M, kind of controlling the clock, kept trying to wear them down. They rushed it 52 times in that game and passed it 15. They won the ball game. Then you look at the next week, they rushed it 34 times, threw it 23. Go down to Texas State. They threw the ball 40 times in that game against Texas State for 395. They rushed it just 21 times. So, and they only rushed it for 41 yards. So obviously the run was not working in that game. So they started throwing the football, and the very next week they run it 64 times and pass it 7. So I think what you see with Kevin Barbay and how he runs an offense is going to start with the running game. He's going to try to establish the run usually. But if it's not working, he's going to change it up. And I think, last week, it's not like the run wasn't working. Mississippi State was running the football. It's just that the drives were not sustainable. The drives stalled out. And there wasn't really a flow of the offense. They weren't able to get into a groove. And also, the substitution patterns were kind of an issue in that game too. We didn't see a whole lot of Cree Whittemore, who had a great game the week before. It was just kind of like random stuff that was happening. And then, Mike Wright touched the ball just a few times. Most of the time he handed the ball off after he had a lot of success. So it was just, it's hard to kind of get a grasp on what this is going to be week in and week out. If you get my drift there. I don't really know what it is yet. We'll see as the year goes on. Richard Neal, is Xavier Thomas healthy right now? He seems to be pretty healthy coming in this week. He played a good bit on Saturday, didn't get any catches, if I remember correctly, but did return a punt, had a nice punt return, I think 25 yards or so. And this week is a good opportunity for him to kind of let loose a little bit. This was the game last year, I think, that we really started to see Xavier more. He got back there as a punt returner, had a nice punt return, almost took one back against LSU, and that's when we started to kind of see him emerge a little bit. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. LSU didn't want him coming out of high school and decided to come to Mississippi State. He's a Louisiana guy, and LSU didn't want him. And he also has not had a chance to really explode this year. There's a lot of expectations for him. You got to get guys like him in the game this week. Him, Cree Whittemore, Tulu Griffin, those are your big playmakers at wide receiver. Those guys have got to get the ball consistently. And, whether it be jet sweeps in the run game, throwing the football, they got to do something, those guys, this week to get creative. Oh, Dirty 808, should the head coach get involved with telling the OC on strategy, like taking the air out of the ball? He should not. He would not say that to Leach. I mean, I know he's the coach. I mean, yeah, it's his team. Yeah, he should absolutely get involved if he wants to. I mean, I don't think that Mike Leach was completely out of it. I mean, I think Mike Leach had some input in what they did defensively. I mean, I think he left Zach Arnett alone for the most part, but he had conversations with them in that side of the ball. I mean, I don't think that he should get in there and tell Kevin Barbay, what plays to run every single play. But If he thinks it'd be good at that time to take the air out of the ball a little bit, then that's his prerogative. He's in charge of the team. Sven, what I want to see against LSU is 50-50 run and throw and some deep shots. Will had 4 against Arizona, and 3 of them were TDs. Let Will cook. We'll see. I don't think it'll be 50-50, but hopefully, they do throw the football a lot more. They can afford to take some shots and see what happens there. You gotta spread it out a little bit. The defense is probably going to crowd the box to defend the run. Mississippi State is going to have to throw the football a little bit to have success in this game. Richard, I'm trying to wrap my head around Mike Wright just handing off the ball. I would also like to see him roll out and connect with a mid-range pass. Yeah, I just don't understand what's going on there. He had 5 carries for like 96 yards or whatever it was in the first game, and had 1 carry in this game. We haven't seen him throw the football. I don't understand what they're doing with him. And I don't think that bringing him in for 1 play and then taking him out, I don't think that's doing a whole lot for the offense either. I feel like to have a better flow, you give him a few plays in a row and then bring him out. Unless it's a short yardage situation, which I think he should be in on several situations to run, short yardage and see what happens there. But, him coming in on the first play and handing the ball off and then going out and Will coming in, I don't get that. Oh, washed up 168. Will has thrown an interception against LSU the last 2 years. Need him to break that. Yeah, you don't want those, obviously, in this game. Andy, have you noticed how much Cameron Jones has struggled in the first 2 games? I've seen several whiff blocks. That's concerning against Harold Perkins. I like Cam better at guard. I think that fits him better. Right tackle, to me, just isn't as good a fit for him as an interior. I think he could be a road grader inside. His strength is not pass blocking on the edge, I don't think. Chuck says follow Florida State's game plan on LSU. That would be ideal. There's obviously a lot of things that has to go right for you. By the way, I'm sure y'all saw Chris Jones signed a 1-year deal with the Chiefs, so he's back. So that's good for Bulldog fans and for Chief fans. They need him badly. Sven, if you want to run the ball against LSU 70%, that D-line will eat us alive. I agree. You can't. I don't think you can do that in this game. And looking at the rest of the schedule, there's not many games you could do that against. And I'm not just blown away by the SEC, by the way, defensively. I don't think the SEC is this juggernaut that they used to be defensively. But they're good enough. There's good enough players out there. You can't just stroll out there and run the same play, 65, 70% of the time. These teams can load up the box and stop that. Most of these teams are not going to be, top 25, top 50 defenses. But at the same time, you can't expect to have that kind of success against them. Arizona's not going to be a top 50 defense by the end of the year probably. But they loaded up the box and stopped it. They had good enough players to do that. From this stage on, unless you're playing Western Michigan, which is coming up, I don't think that you can do that. Sven, by the way, did you see Forbes and Sweat in Washington? They played great. I did. Sweat had a big forced fumble and a strip sack. And Emmanuel Forbes had a big pass breakup to end the game. So Mississippi State players doing some big things, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It's pretty crazy what they do on the defensive side in the NFL. They got some great players. Enjoyed watching some of those games tonight. Bills and Jets, I think. So excited about that. Get to see West Point native Jason Brownlee playing for the Jets. new offense there with Aaron Rodgers leading the charge. I'm really excited to see what the Jets have. I thought Hard Knocks this year was really good. If you're into that, you should go check it out. Really good insight on Aaron Rodgers and what they're doing to the Jets too. So that's pretty cool, and I'm excited to see that matchup with the Bills tonight. Find me. I understand it'll be a different game plan for each team we play, obviously, but the Arizona game plan was not very good. Agree. I didn't think it was good. They obviously have to change it up this week, do something different. Sven, game starts at 4 a.m. Well, I guess you'll be missing it. You're going to have to DVR it or watch it back on your YouTube TV or whatever you got going on there. All right, anybody else? Any other questions? Comments? Sven's not a fan of the NFL, I guess. All right. Well, we'll cut her off here. We got a good week ahead. LSU week, obviously, got a ton of coverage coming. They're talking to, I wasn't able to go tonight to interviews. They're talking to Kevin Barbay, I believe, and Matt Brock tonight, should be. So, should be some interesting comments coming from those interviews. I'm really interested to see how that goes. But we'll have full coverage of that on the site. Come check us out, 247sports.com. We've had a good start to the week as far as Thunder and Lightning is concerned, so check us out on the podcast. If you haven't heard those yet, make sure you're subscribing to that podcast and get that daily. And other than that, I appreciate you guys. Another good show tonight. We'll be back again next Monday. I'll have a reaction video, of course, on Saturday after the game. And also, if you haven't seen the reaction video from Saturday, I got that video uploaded. You can go check it out. My thoughts immediately following the game on kind of what went down in the game. You can go check it out right now. It's in the archive on my channel. So appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great rest of the week. We'll catch you down the road.